The first thing I did after posting on Reddit was checking into the busiest hotel in Ranchi, thinking that if I could recreate the environment of my college, I would be rid of that thing, at least temporarily, and finally get a good night's sleep. So I moved into the busiest, rowdiest hotel I could find, bang in the middle of the city, after specifically asking for a room with a single bed. As I settled in, I went through my phone. After reading your comments, I went out and bought a bag of salt, using it to draw a boundary around my bed. A couple of weeks ago, I would have laughed at anyone trying to do something like this, but I was now desperately beyond the point of caring and would do just about anything to make this end. The me from 2 weeks ago didn't know he was being haunted by something that could walk through walls. A lot of you seem to think that this entity haunting me was benign, and may even have been protecting me. I had no way of knowing that, and it is not something that I could just assume, considering that the opposite of that was just as likely to be true, and that my life really was in danger. All I really wanted was to sleep without a monster in my bed. Some of you suggested that I should try and fuck the thing. I'll admit it, I laughed at that one, and boy did I need that. For those of you wondering why I didn't just get someone to sleep next to me or get a dog, it really isn't that easy. I had just moved to a new town for my job and I hardly knew anyone here. Inviting them into my bedroom would mean sexual harassment charges. And what would be the point of getting a dog? The barking would wake me up when I wanted to sleep, and besides, I really wasn't in the right headspace to be raising an animal. Next, I tried to send the video I took to my parents and friends, and even thought about uploading it to YouTube. And here at where it gets freaky, every single time the video just turned into pure static. I mean, I could watch it on my camera, but every attempt at transferring it to any other device resulted in complete failure. I tried playing the video on my camera and recording the camera on my phone, but even that didn't work. The camera's screen seemed to be showing static on the video I was trying to shoot on my phone, even as the video continued to play on the damn camera. I felt like I was losing my mind. Dejected, I had almost decided that maybe I was going through a mental breakdown when I heard a knock on my door. Room service. The look of shock on that man's face when he saw the video sent relief flooding through my body. I wasn't crazy. This was real. I sent him away with a hefty tip and some lame excuse about an experimental horror movie that I was trying to film in my bedroom, and settled in for the night. A faint smell of cigarettes lingered in the stale and musky air of the hotel room as I lay on my back, gazing up at the rusting ceiling fan. I was exhausted. Every cell in my body was crying out, wanting me to fall asleep, but it just didn't happen. I was teetering at the edge of consciousness the entire night, frightened out of my mind. I counted sheep, concentrated on the sounds outside, meditated while lying down, but nothing worked. I kept imagining that man waltzing through the walls and sitting down on the couch at the foot of my bed and staring at me through the night. I mean, I'm pretty sure I was imagining it. I didn't think I slept for even a second the whole night, but when sunlight came streaming in through the windows and I got out of my bed, my world turned upside down. The salt line I had carefully drawn around my bed had been broken at one place. Fuck. It was taunting me. It was letting me know that it could get to me anywhere. And not just that, but that it had been doing this for the last 18 years nonstop. I had never been alone, not even back in college. Why didn't I ever find out that he was there back then? Granted, I was a bit of a slob back then, but surely it couldn't have been so bad. The stress and lack of sleep was getting to me at this point, and my head began to pound like it never had before. I trudged downstairs to the hotel canteen and chugged 2 cups of just the trashiest coffee, and contemplated my next move. What can I do to make this stop? As I ordered bread pakoras, my thoughts kept circulating back to that infernal doll my grandmother had given me. Whatever was happening to me had started back when my dad made me watch that show, Whoa, and my grandma gave me a doll that exactly like that psychotic clown who murdered people by shoving garlands down their throats. Now I had spoken to my parents, and based off of their reactions, I didn't think they had an inkling of what I was going through. They told me they had thrown the doll away when I had that hysterical tantrum and have no idea what the fuck happened to it. So that left my nanny. Maybe she inadvertently gave me a cursed object. Maybe she even knows what was happening here. I took out my phone and dialed her number. She picked up the 3rd time I called her. Hello? Her weak and raspy voice came from the other side. Who is this? Nani. It's me, Aditya. I replied. She was overjoyed at hearing my voice and launched into a long, one-sided conversation, asking me how I was doing, then complaining how I never visit even before I could answer, and then meandering on to some random gossip about her neighbors. Nani, I cut her off. This isn't a social call. I really need your help. Help? What do you need? She asked. Do you remember that doll you gave me when I was 8? Where did you get it? I questioned, and waited a full 30 seconds before she responded. Why are you asking about that? She asked softly. Strange things have been happening to me recently, Nani, and I think that doll has something to do with it. I just need to... Hello? Hello? She had cut the call. At some level, I was angry that she hung up on me, but more than anything, I was relieved. Relieved that I wasn't shooting in the dark anymore. My suspicions were correct. She knew what was happening. There might really be a way for me to end this. I called her a couple of more times, but she refused to pick up her phone. I knew what I had to do next. I paid my bills at the hotel, called my boss asking for sick leave, made my way to the airport and bought a ticket to Indore. The plane ride worsened my headache, making it impossible for me to sleep. Not that I was even trying to at this point. My grandma sounded scared when I spoke to her, finally convincing me that whatever entity I was dealing with wasn't exactly a friend. I was so exhausted at this point that it was becoming hard for me to differentiate between reality and dreams. I swear to God I saw him phase into and out of the toilet on the plane, but my sleep-deprived brain could very well have been hallucinating the whole thing. He appeared in the reflection on the window and might have been sitting next to me, or not. Who the fuck knows? I was just beginning to nod off when the plane touched down. The next thing I remember is getting out of a cab in front of my Nani's house in Ujjain. The entire journey from Indore to Ujjain is just gone from my memory, apart from brief flashes where I was experiencing microsleep and my body would come out of mere seconds of sleep with violent, heart-stopping jerks. Nani's home is a pretty little bungalow nestled into an affluent corner of Ujjain. She had lived here with Nana after his retirement and had refused to shift even after he died 6 years ago, despite my mother pleading and warning her of potential murderers. Old people are stubborn, aren't they? I walked up the gravel path, rang the doorbell, and waited patiently. It took her a while to get to the door, old and frail as she was. "Who is it?" she asked. I imagined she was peering through the peephole, looking at me, not that it would be of much help to her at this age. "Newspaper bill, madam," I replied. She slowly opened the door, and her eyes widened as she realized who it was. She had no right to be surprised. If she knew the truth of what was happening, she must have known I would come. "Hi, Nani." I gave her a quick hug and entered the house before she could react. 15 minutes later, I was sitting on my favorite couch, sipping Nani's tea while she sat in front of me, nervously twiddling her thumbs. I had spent so many wonderful summer holidays in this place, but I wasn't here for nostalgia's sake. I had a clear objective, and I needed to get to the point as soon as possible. "Please, Nani, tell me everything," I said gently. She fidgeted, and it looked like she was going to lie, before taking a deep breath and speaking what I was now sure was the truth. 20 years ago, she began. I was diagnosed with lung cancer. It was pretty bad. Chemotherapy wasn't working, and your Nana was going further and further into debt because of the medical costs. I nodded. I had heard about her illness and eventual recovery. "I had no hopes of survival," she said. It was hopeless, and I had accepted that fact. Until, I prodded. "I met this man," she replied. "He was in the hospital, in the bed next to me, but I don't think that he was a real patient, you know. He had these strange, sparkling eyes, almost like an angel. It was like God had answered my prayers. I clenched my fists at this. He spoke to me," she continued. "He was very attentive and caring. He listened to me vent for God knows how long, and then..." "Then what?" I asked. "He said he could cure my sickness, make the pain go away," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "How?" I asked. "He offered me a deal," she answered. "What deal?" I asked, shifting forward. She didn't say anything, turning her face away in guilt. What deal? I asked again, forcefully this time. He said, she was in tears now. I was losing my patience. What did he say? I shouted. She shrank back in fear and I immediately felt guilty. But before I could apologize, she began speaking again. A day for a night for a day, she said softly. What the fuck? I don't have time for riddles, Nani. Please tell me what that means. She was looking terrified now, her eyes darting around like a cornered rat. But I wasn't going to let her retreat from this situation. It means, she began, that he would take a day from my grandson's life and give it to me each night or something. I sat there stunned. I couldn't fucking believe what I was hearing. This bitch. You stole 18 years of my life? I asked, aghast. I didn't think you would ever find out. She pleaded pathetically. I put my hand up, and she immediately shut up. I then brought this hand further up and began furiously running it through my hair. Fuck. I needed to get out of this place. I was feeling cornered, betrayed, frightened. I don't know. All those nights that I lay scared out of my wits in bed, my soul was being sucked out, one day at a time. I walked to the front door, put my hand on the knob, before turning to look at my grandmother one last time, who was weeping. You know what? I said. Don't ever talk to me again. You are dead to me. With that, I slammed the door shut behind me. I would regret that later. I walked over to the park outside her house and began to wander aimlessly. She brought that monster into my life. My own fucking grandmother betrayed me. Every time I visited her house, played in her lap, all the food she cooked for me, all this time she knew she was condemning me to this fate. Not only did she take 18 fucking years from my future, she also destroyed the 18 fucking years I lived through. All that childhood trauma. God, I was so mad I could rip my hair out, but I needed to focus on the situation at hand. This entity was sucking out my soul, one day, each night. I had already lost around 18 years of my lifespan to her selfishness. Who knows what that thing is going to do now that I know about its existence? I had to get him to stop feeding off of me. But how? Oh, damn. I would have to go back and ask her if there is a way to end this curse. My dramatic announcement will have to be put on hold for some time. But what if that can't be done? What do I do then? The fact that I was dealing with a supernatural problem convinced me that going about this the conventional way wasn't going to work. I had been thinking about something and finally decided to go through with it. I called one of my batchmates and arranged for a meeting with someone from the Mahakaleshwar Temple Management Committee. Perks of being a government officer, I guess. I needed help. Maybe I'll find it in religion. If the Shiva temple at Ujjain can't help me, maybe nothing can. I closed my eyes, letting all of my emotions wash over me. It had been a long couple of days. The exhaustion began to set in, and I was about to sleep on this park bench when I remembered why I absolutely must not do that, and violently shook myself. I was not letting that bastard take even a second from my lifespan. The next time I sleep, it would only be after I have rid myself of this monster. Preparing myself to have another conversation with my grandmother, I plodded over back to her house. Alarm bells began ringing as I saw that her front door had been left ajar. Cautiously, I tiptoed my way inside, looking for any signs of trouble. I found my grandmother in the exact same spot I had left her, sitting in a pool of blood. Her jaw had been ripped from her skull and was hanging loosely over her chest. I could see her tongue hanging out, longer than I thought was possible. I would have screamed if I wasn't too terrified to do so. My knees felt weak, and I collapsed on the floor as I kept on staring at her dead body. I became a coughing, sobbing mess as I had a panic attack right next to my dead grandmother. It was not pretty. Terrified at the sight in front of me, but too scared to move away, I stayed on my knees, panting and wheezing. Soon I found myself crawling over to her body. To do what? I don't know. I felt an overwhelming surge of guilt. Why? I don't know. I just wished I could take it back. Wished that this nightmare would end. Even after everything that had happened, I still wasn't prepared for what happened next. Her hand shot up and grabbed me by the throat, pulling me in close to her. My eyes widened in fear, and I began to thrash around violently to get myself free, but she held on with monstrous strength. The pupils in her eyes jumped around at an unnatural speed as she continued to pull me in closer. I started to fight harder to get free, but to no avail. I felt her breath on my ear, and then I saw her unhinged jaw begin to move as I heard this malicious whisper right next to my ear. A day for a night for a day,